Hey guys, there's a few things I want to say before this video kicks off. This video was recorded about 1 month after the Division 2 came out. I still wanted to upload it because I liked how the script turned out, I liked how the video turned out, although my opinions on the game have changed pretty drastically since then. This game lasted significantly longer than the Division 1 for me. The Division 1 I got bored of in about a week. This took about a month, although in this video I speak highly of the game. After about a month of time, the loot did start to get boring. The gameplay kind of got boring to me as well. And right now, post-launch of the Division 2, a lot of the community is kind of not a fan of the game as much as it was at launch. Even though it did have a very good launch, the post-launch has been, well, kind of bleh. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I still wanted to upload the video because I did enjoy how it turned out, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Hopefully there's still hope for the future of the Division 2, and maybe I'll jump back in if it gets any better, but right now it's kind of hard when your main drive to play games like these is the loot, and the loot is so grounded because the game is grounded. It's kind of hard to have that power fantasy like I do in like Destiny with the Division because it's just not that kind of story. But I just wanted to let you guys know, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to LOOTastic and to another Loot Opinion video. Today we are talking about Tom Clancy's The Division 2, my initial loot impressions, and what The Division 2 does right when it comes to loot. There's lots to talk about here, so let's get started. The first Division game launched over 3 years ago, and around that time I was knee-deep in playing the original Destiny. That was my go-to loot game. I was hyped for The Division, completely sold on Ubisoft's mission, and I wanted something to almost combat with the likes of Destiny because competition is important, especially for the evolving genre of looter shooters and live service games. Competition breathes improvements and evolution. That being said, once the first Division launched, I played on and off for about 2 weeks and never touched the game again. It didn't fulfill that power fantasy like Destiny did. Loot felt boring, gear pieces were just different shades of brown and gray, higher rarities didn't seem different enough, it was lacking in content, enemies didn't react to being shot, and although the city of New York covered in snow was quite beautiful, the city itself lacked life. And even through all the updates and improvements to the game, I just stuck with the always changing game of Destiny 1 and never went back. Flash forward 3 years and here we are, except this time things are vastly different, almost polar opposite. Every time a game with the looter shooter genre tagged onto it releases, things go, well, not as planned. Every looter shooter has had a rocky launch, some less rocky than others, but they are always tough launches, whether it's not enough content, or not what the devs promised, or server issues. There's always something plaguing the first impressions of these kinds of games, and first impressions are very, very important, especially in the gaming industry, and especially nowadays when everyone's initial opinion is being shared all over the internet for everyone to instantly see and react to. Destiny's launch went poorly, the Division's launch went poorly, Destiny 2's launch went really bad, Anthem's launch is still going bad, and then we have the Division 2. The launch of the Division 2 went, well, it went great. Everything went really well and is still going really well, and people are genuinely loving the game. I'm loving the game. Destiny 2 right now is the slowest it's been for me since the Forsaken expansion dropped, and it is super dry compared to the Division 2 for now. I'm sure once Bungie flies out of the gates with a new expansion, I'll be back into Destiny, but I don't think I'll leave the Division anytime soon. I'll play both if both of them are enjoyable. It doesn't have to be one or the other. As of the writing of this script, I have played 64 hours of the Division 2, and I've just now hit what is considered the end game content and the world tiers, of which there are 5. Now, I've seen tons of people fly right through the story missions, hit level 30, and get to endgame in like 20 hours or so, but one of the things that the Division does right is its photorealistic rendition of Washington, D.C. and the places you can explore within, which distracted me from that sprint to the finish line of getting to endgame and why it took me so long to reach it. The entirety of Washington, D.C. is open for you to explore as soon as you start the game, and nothing is gated off by invisible walls. Some doors won't open because they require you to be doing a specific mission, but you'll probably run into the mission before you find the doors like that on your own. The only thing that's really an obstacle is the enemy level. Different zones have different enemies with different levels, so if you travel to a zone with level 20 enemies and you're only level 5, then you'll have some issues getting around. The Division 2 didn't fail where its predecessor did with its empty playable area of New York. Washington, D.C. in the Division 2 is filled, literally filled with things happening and loot to find. There's buildings to explore, collectibles to find, animals running in the streets, different events, tons of loot, locked doors, factions fighting, secret ciphers hidden. There's a lot to do, find, and explore. Visually different areas make all of this off the beaten path exploring less repetitive, with foresty areas, sewers, museums, rooftops, and chaos-filled streets. Loot-wise, there is tons of secrets to find. Locked doors tend to lead to collectibles and weapon or armor crates. Looting suitcases, trash bins, backpacks, file cabinets, dressers, toolboxes, etc. lends you cosmetics, crafting materials, or trinkets, which can be sold, given to NPCs, or used for projects that require specific trinkets, and projects lead to XP and lead to weapon attachments, so more loot. There are super secret cryptic messages you can find throughout the world that lead to riddles that eventually lead to cool masks that you can wear. You can find dyes for your armor and weapon skins out in the world as well. Knowing there's secrets around every corner is why it took me so long to reach max level, and I don't mind that one bit. Exploring and finding countless pieces of loot, cosmetics, secrets, and collectibles is an important part of loot-based games, and the Division 2 does it fantastically well. If you've watched any Division 2 reviews or videos, you've probably heard about the mission design being awesome, and I have to agree with what everyone is saying. Mission design is unique in almost every scenario, and the in-mission stories are well done too. This only adds to the exploration feature, looking for secrets while exploring the Air and Space Museum and the Space Administration headquarters is just so cool, and a few of my favorite moments in the game so far. That dopamine rush of finding something you didn't expect and then constantly looking for it everywhere is definitely a hook, but the game itself is fun, and the loot is fun, so it's worth it. Now let's legit talk about the loot. We know you get loot from literally everywhere, exploring, suitcases, etc. You also get loot from doing any kind of mission, objective, event, anything and everything rewards you with loot of some kind. As far as rarities, you've got common, uncommon, rare, superior, high-end, exotic, and sets. Tons of progression loot-wise, and once you hit max level of 30, you'll be finding the gold-colored high-end items left and right. I have yet to find one exotic, which are red colored. They can drop randomly, and some of them drop from specific bosses, and set pieces drop from specific missions. Each tier of items gets progressively better, obviously, and some armor pieces are parts of brand sets. Brand sets net you bonuses for wearing multiple armor pieces of the same brand, up to 3. Brands are attached to tons of gear, including lower level gear, so early on you can get a feel for how the sets work before you get into the actual end game gear sets, which are a different rarity completely, but pretty much work the same. The more pieces of a set you wear, the more bonuses you get, except the end game gear sets can net you up to 6 bonuses, and they usually revolve around a certain play style. The gear slots you have consist of 2 main weapons, pistol, mask, backpack, chest armor, gloves, holster, and knee pads. There's also a ton of mods you can find to mod your gear and your guns, and mods you can find to mod your skills. Lots of loot to find and grind. All the gear has random attributes on them, and higher tier gear come equipped with random talents, which are more sophisticated and game-changing perks. Overall, the loot is a blast so far, and I've yet to get the 2 highest rarities, so that says something. Before I end the video, I want to touch on a few smaller things first. Visual customization. I think it's hard to compete with other looter shooters because other looter shooters aren't based around reality. Destiny, Warframe, and Anthem have the freedom of basically doing whatever the heck they want because their worlds are fiction. The Division is way more grounded, so letting players look cool, I feel, is way tougher to do. Yes, a lot of the gear you get is different shades of black, white, brown, dark green, dark blue, dark orange, and so on, but this time I don't care as much. In the Division 1, the game just wasn't good enough. There was a lot that I and many others didn't like about the game, and visual progression didn't help any because of how boring it was. In The Division 2, however, the game itself is phenomenal and the gameplay is fun, so I think it's less apparent how strict the visual progression is because we're actually enjoying the game this time around. That being said, there definitely has been improvements to how the loot looks. There are many different styles and varieties of armor and weapons, even if the colors don't change as much, but you can find weapon skins and armor dyes from exploring to change the color of your gear. That adds to the visual customization and progression loop a fair bit more. There is also an in-game store where you can buy customization options if you want to, and you can unlock all the in-store items from apparel caches, which you earn just from playing. Last thing I want to talk about is playing solo. Throughout most of my time playing The Division 2, it's been by myself. Usually, looter shooters tend to push players to play with others, or recommend that you matchmake with others, things of that nature, and while that is here somewhat, I've never hit a wall where it felt like I needed help from other players. I've been able to take my time, explore, take in everything, and really find out how the game works myself, and honestly, I love that about The Division 2. Obviously, to do harder difficulty missions and the more challenging parts of the game, I'll need to group up with people. But my roughly 70-hour journey exploring what the game has to offer solo has been quite an enjoyable experience, and I'm glad I was able to do that. This, coupled with the game not forcing me to play every single day with daily and weekly missions that reward me with cool stuff that I could miss out on, really helped with the potential burnout, allowing me to take my time in Washington, D.C., and in the groundbreaking foundation The Division 2 has built itself upon as the next big looter shooter. Sound off in the comments below and let me know how you're enjoying The Division 2. As always, this video was brought to you by LOOTastic, where you get all the legendary loot news and info free of charge, no grind or limbs required. Like the video for a dark gray backpack that's totally different than the one you already have equipped, and subscribe for a looter shooter scooter to make your trek across the streets of DC a bit faster. Until next time, happy looting.